On November 9th, Phillips will host Double-Signed, a thematic auction of watches sold all over the world. Today, we're in Zurich to meet one of the few still open for business to learn a little bit more about the watches in our auction. Mr. Beyer, it's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for having us in today. Since 1926, your family has been managing this boutique at this address, meaning that watches that are in front of you, which are all consigned to the Double-Signed auction, were all sold within these four walls.
From 1864 to 1925, we were in the location of the actual Credit Suisse Bank, and they moved us out because the international business became more and more important, and then they said, we put you in a building next to it, and now we are in 31, and we don't have any plans to change within the next 20 years. We just renewed our contract. We are happy to stay where we are, and it's a good place. And this is the watch museum where we are exactly.
So we've presented these watches from the beginning of the 20th century to the Jubilee that you celebrated in 2016, starting with a Rolex bubble back, signed Beyer, from the 1930s.
This is a real nice watch. I like it. The signature of Beyer is just underneath the center and above the small subsidiary second-hand dial. It must have been in the first half of the 30s that this watch was created. I love it. It's a nice size. It's very clear typed dial. And of course for us it makes it even more special since it says Beyer and Rolex on it. You know, that was a time when Hans Wilsdorf was still even having some problems to import watches under the name of Rolex. But Hans Wilsdorf, he was a German, he was of course always fighting, and he had a good heart, and the more and more he was getting involved in the business, the watches got better, and this is already one of the watches from that good moment that Rolex started after they were crossing the channel. I personally must say this is a watch that I also would love to have in my collection personally.
Do you remember stories from your father or grandfather about the relationship with Hans Wilsdorf and Rolex throughout the years?
Yes, of course. We have had many encounters. Hans Wilsdorf was always our direct partner. We did not go through distribution centers or so. Hans Wilsdorf came to Zurich. He met, for the most of the time, my grandmother. They have had a very close tie, and for me it was very fascinating, and I always love to see the pictures we have with Hans Wilsdorf. Afterwards it was André Heiniger, the next big man at Rolex from 1959 to 1996. He was in power. And I think these two have really marked the friendship with our family. And of course, my father was then even taking up the dimension of relationship even on a higher level, because he was doing military under Mr. André Heiniger. And in Switzerland, it means something special. If you do military service, you tie relations for life, privately and business-wise. And these two, they were like bodies.
Then a bit of an unusual ellipse, since it has the TV-shaped case and a lovely blue dial.
Yes, it's the TV-shaped ellipse, you know, it is not, the ellipse is normally the oval-shaped watch, but Patek made some small diversifications. There was even a crossing between a Nautilus and an ellipse at one time, but you can say this is for most people what they would call the TV-shaped ellipse, and it is particularly beautiful because of the beautiful blue gold dial that Gilbert Albert was making for Patek. Of course, the signature always with Patek is not next to the name, but beneath the center of the watch. And yeah, this is elegance with the minimum of indications necessary. For me, this watch is just almost perfect in design.
One thing that we can notice on this particular watch when you turn it around is the Beyer numbers, and we notice there's a specific code to Beyer Chronométrie. It always ends with plus, Z, and 3. I was wondering if you could explain that code.
Okay, I will do. Now you really get out all the secrets of me. This is true. There is a very small engraving of the number, and the plus Z3 means Switzerland, because plus is like this flag of Switzerland. Z3 is Zurich 3. When the police of Zurich was asking the watch retailers to help them, they said, we can never do something very fast because we do not see the numbers and they don't have the tools to open the watches. So they said in order to have a speedier possibility of cracking down on the people that steal things, it's just a help of identification of the watch. And unfortunately today, most watch companies would not encourage us to restart to do the engraving on the watches because they feel their product must be the same all over the world.
Next to the TV shape Phillips, we have one of the most historically important references by Patek Philippe, a yellow gold 3450.
Might be a coincidence, but I wear this watch today. It was my first watch that I ever sold. For me, this is where I started my personal career in this business and with Patek Philippe. And I love these two pieces, this one and also the chronograph Perpetual Calendar. They are for me the most iconic watches of Patek they ever made. A watch is not just an indicator of time, it's also memorizing things, weddings, important events in the life of a man. And I always love to find out when I have a piece that has the signature of a retailer, I can always try to challenge the customer and say, did you know this watch was sold originally to South America? How did it get back? So it's through these indications, which we were discussing before, that we can sometimes find out things which the previous owner did not even know.
Can you estimate how many of these references were sold by Beyer?
You know, I know that we sold probably 3 to 4 a year because Patek was very shy with production between 1952 until 1980. There were really only about 10 pieces made for the whole world.
Finally, a reference that you know well, it's the 5205. For the anniversary of the boutique here in Zurich.
We celebrate next year 260 years of existence, and this was just because we have had the Patek boutique, the first Patek boutique in Switzerland, and we said, what could we do special in order to commemorate the 10 years of collaboration in their own boutique? And of course, then I had to deal with Thierry already. Philip was already having been withdrawing, and we came up that this is a very beautiful watch. The blue dial is fitting well with Zurich. We like the blue color, and Patek decided they made us here on the back an engraving by saying Beyer 2016 to mark the 10th anniversary of the Patek Philippe boutique. And we are very proud to celebrate that with them.
Looking at these watches, we get a snapshot of the watchmaking industry during the 20th and 21st century. We also get a snapshot into your family history. How does it feel to look at these pieces and what stories does it inspire you?
You know, it's a little bit like you see the family gathering, the feeling, okay, they never were really away. I don't see them every day, but it is something that I really get emotional about them before I start crying now. I really feel like my babies, and some of them are closer to me than others, but the more they have a story, the more I can say, oh, this watch I know to whom I sold it, this watch I know. I can figure out basically the first owner of any of these watches. So I must say I'm proud to see that you have been gathering these pieces.